After working in IT for a while, many folks notice a glaring disconnect. No, it's not the disconnect when you unplug the vac so you can get your desk lamp turned on, which I might have done once. And it's also not the digital divide between ops and dev or any of those other groups. It's the disconnect between the daily tech realities and the business who seems incapable of understanding and therefore adequately supporting and funding, most importantly, that work. So over on the TechPod podcast, I asked Keith Townsend in his role as CTO advisor, which skills would help IT practitioners up-level their career. Keith's answer was simple and direct. Learn how to people better. So I brought him back today to explain all of that and much, much more. So Keith, thank you so much for joining me again.
Thanks for having me again, Leon.
It is always a pleasure. So as good IT people, I want to get our data dictionary, define our terms. When you say peopling, what exactly do you mean by that?
Oh, that part of the being an engineer that's not on the test where you actually have to go into the finance guy's office or gal's office and explain why you need a new core switch and they actually understand?
Got it. Right. Not just going in there to fix something, but going in there to get to explain or get something. Okay.
To explain the value, the core value of IT.
Got it. And I think also something that you had mentioned over on TechPod was that it's not just going over to people who you have a quid pro quo. I'll fix your network if you fund my core switch, but also getting to know the other parts of the business for what they do, for the value that they bring to the business, not just how they consume what we as IT folks are doing, right?
Yeah, ultimately, you need to know how money gets made in your business so that you can better serve your business. And for me, to get the stuff that we love to play with.
Right. And that speaks to the benefits. Somebody may be saying, well, why would I want to do that? It's pretty obvious that if you can people better, if you can relate, then it's easier to get what you want. Now, I do also want to level set by saying that there are some people who are at a point in their careers where they may be thinking, look, you pay me to be good, not to be nice about it. And that's an idea, and there's some validity to that in certain situations. But we're really speaking to people who actively want to learn how to people better, and yet they go onto Pluralsight or Code Academy and they can't find a class in it, right?
Yeah, the last time I checked, there was no peopling category for either.
Right, exactly. Okay, you can't get your CCNA in peopling. And so diving into some of the specifics, there's an example that comes to mind when we talk about putting things in business terms. Now, I'm not just talking about here today, putting things in business terms. I'm talking about as IT people getting better at describing what we do in purely a business sense of things. And the example I've got is a forklift scenario where you've got a warehouse floor and you have one or more forklifts and they do some stuff. And if one of those forklifts breaks or the warehouse manager needs another one, intrinsically that they're going to be able to go to the executives and explain in absolute dollars and cents what the benefit of that's going to be. Even though technically a forklift is a cost, it still has an impact to the business and the business's ability to generate revenue. That the warehouse manager is going to be able to say, look, this is how much product we move per hour. If we don't have this thing repaired, we're losing that capability. Or when they find there's a new feature or a new aspect, they're going to be able to frame that and say, look at what we're going to be able to do as part of the business if you allow us, if you give us this capability. And yet, as IT people, as easy as that example is to do and to grasp, as IT people, we still resist putting the things that we do in those terms, and that confuses me.
Yeah, you know what? Let's take the role of the CFO or the chief revenue officer, and they're looking at their competitors, and the competitors like, man, they're really killing us in the marketplace. Why are they out competing us? He can go to the GM of logistics and say, why is it that they're shipping more product than us, etc. GM can simply look, hey, we've gotten the same forklifts for the past 30 years. They're less efficient. The chief revenue officer, there's less levels of abstraction between the forklifts and the business results. instantly
Yeah.
understands that, writes the checks for new forklifts.
Right, which I think is the dream scenario for us in IT. We would love to be able to go into the CFO's office and say, da 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 router, da 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 switch, da 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 da. It's like, here's your check, go buy one, right? That's what we want. And so that's my next question. How do we take this forklift scenario and what do we do? What do we actively have to do to translate into a situation where we're talking about new, gear, new hardware, or new software, or new capabilities? How do we do that?
I like to pick on one of the most probably obscure parts of enterprise IT, and that's the DNS administrator. Like, how many of us still have them? So, if you're a DNS administrator, I apologize.
Right.
But the example that I love to give is that as a DNS administrator, you need to be able to understand and communicate the value you're bringing to the end customer. And by end customer, I don't mean the person in finance or the end user using Microsoft Excel. I mean to the person that your company sells products to. Because the CFO, when they're rationaling positions and they're looking to either outsource or eliminate roles, they want to know this DNS administrator. What do they do? How do they help me sell more cigarettes or candy or move our business from selling literally tobacco cigarettes to candy cigarettes? We're getting out of the
Right.
cigarette business. How does a DNS administrator help with that? You need to understand, and you can do this math, work with your manager, work with that next person. This is where peopling come in. Work with those layers until you understand the value that you bring.
Right. And I think that that's a key thing that a lot of people overlook is as IT people, we're used to kind of doing it ourselves. We're used to, well, I need to learn this new piece of software and there's no one in the company who's going to help me. So I gotta go it alone or maybe watch a YouTube video. And again, there's no YouTube videos on peopling, but that's not the case with this. There are people in your organization who will happily honest to God, happily mentor you and say, I really want to do a better job of explaining this to the people who can say yes. So, help me out. Listen to me. I'm going to give an explanation. You're going to poke holes in it. You're going to give me an example of why, you're going to tell me why those examples don't hold up. Help me get to yes faster. And as part of that, one of the things that I have recognized over the years is that businesses really only respond to three pressures. Is the thing that you're talking about going to help me increase revenue, reduce cost, or remove risk? Everything else is gravy. Everything else is actually unimportant according to the business leaders. So you have to frame as a DNS manager, DNS engineer, to your example, how what you do helps to increase revenue, reduce cost, or remove risk. Am I right about that? Am I missing anything?
That is when I was a management consultant. Those were the three core challenges. One of the three, if not all three core challenges, were asked to help an organization with.
Uh-huh. Okay. So that's it's good, and it doesn't have to be all three, although the more the better. Now, in traditional IT, when we're thinking about things, it's very hard to justify how IT regular, DNS or routing and switching or Windows file servers are going to increase revenue, but reduce cost. I think we can go there. Remove risk. I also think that it's fairly easy to justify an upgrade, a new capability, whatever, in those terms. But it does speak to understanding what is and isn't important to the business, right?
Yeah, and it does. And this is where we're going to go back to your forklift example and give the IT folks a boost or help in helping to understand and make that argument. The forklift example was very easy to see, but how much does a new forklift cost? If you need 10 new forklifts,
Hmm.
the cost associated with forklifts are not just the buying of physical forklifts. From
Right.
a technology perspective, there's going to be a technology investment to enable and get the value out of those forklifts.
Mhm.
So what I've done and successfully done in my career is I've taken an initiative, the company-wide initiative, and said, you know what, this is what the company is trying to do, whether it's cost savings, increasing revenue. They've jumped off this new project, and it might be a technology project. It may be upgrading SAP. Most of us are not involved with the day-to-day running of SAP, but you know what? Do you really want to support SAP on those old core, those 20, 30-year-old core switches? No. This is where you start to kind of attach your hitch to these real world projects and help talk about how you can either reduce risk of these projects being successful, enhance these projects so they increase revenue, or whatever the alignment to the business is. It doesn't always have to be the core switch itself produces more revenue. The core switch enhances something that's already very important to the business.
Right. Yeah. Hitching your wagon to, hitching yourself to somebody else's wagon. I think that's the term. Anyway, making it relevant to that important thing automatically helps your case. It's not always possible, but again, when you people more, you start to find out what those important projects are, and you're able to know, oh, wow, we actually do support that a whole lot. So I want to make sure that I highlight that. Um, and this lets us dovetail into, to speaking to different people. I want to talk about your boss. Actually, I want to talk about talking to your boss, by which I mean managing up. Now, a lot of IT folks really bristle at the idea of managing up as if their manager is some, very special person who needs to be handled with kid gloves, or even worse than that is, why would I want to manage up? Like, they're people. Why would I want to do their job for them? I just tell them what I'm doing, and they should be able to handle it, right? So that isn't the right way to frame it, I think. I think there's some other aspects of this that need to be understood.
Yeah, you know what? I think most of people watching this session are IT infrastructure people. There was a time where the operating system of a system was not the responsibility of operations, but the computer scientists that implemented the system. We kept abstracting that. We kept abstracting that to the point where no one even cares about the servers anymore. We're in a whole new. We're talking about post serverless, but that's our job. Our job and our expectation, a successful IT infrastructure subject matter expert,
Hmm.
abstracts away the problem until the thing just becomes, you know, a afterthought.
Right.
So if you're making this thing easier for your boss to consume, you're doing your job as an IT infrastructure person.
So boss as a service, infrastructure,
Boss as a
boss as
Yeah, your boss's infrastructure as a service. I like this thing. I have this saying that, and I'm using this in the concept of data science as well. If you have a group of data scientists who spend 80% of their time doing the exact same thing, but it's only there because of the complex nature of people and the knowledge that we have, it's the opportunity for IT infrastructure to go in and solve a problem and deliver that. This is no different. If you're doing the same, if you're repeating the same processes over and over and over again, we're experts at optimizing that, abstracting that, and creating systems to make that infrastructure versus one-offs.
Interesting. I like that. I like the idea of looking at that process and being process engineers in that respect. There's another point to this also, because our bosses are typically not repeatable, constantly consistent systems. They are actual humans, which is understanding how your boss wants to be spoken to.
Yeah, so we've all run into this in our career that there's this thing that we're trying to get at. And it's like we're talking to a foreign language to our manager, to someone outside our industry, et cetera. And we basically are. If you ever look at some of the jargon that we have. I had to explain the concept of VMware vSphere to somebody for the first time ever. And I had used the example of Airbnb,
Hmm.
but it got the point across. Even
Right.
though, VMware predates Airbnb, of course, the concept, the person got the concept and I got the business. So we need to translate our IT speak, as much as we love it, into something that our bosses understand. And sometimes our bosses literally are the people we directly report to. They hired us because we're experts at managing DNS zones. They're not. We shouldn't feel bad about needing to explain that concept to them.
All right. So we've sort of danced around this a little bit, by how we want to talk to our manager and we want to frame things in business terms. Um, but the how of that, right? Okay, so we want to put things in business terms. We want to talk about revenue and cost and risk and all that stuff. But I think we still need to make sure that we understand that the language of business is the language of data. That you need, whatever it is that you want to say, you still need to say it with data, right?
Yeah, we do. And unfortunately, we in IT, we like to look at data the way that benefits IT.
Mm-hmm.
Great example, server uptime. We're very
Yeah.
proud. We've implemented DevOps. We've done these operational changes that the business really on the surface doesn't care about, but we have, more importantly, these metrics. The
Mm-hmm.
application, we're thinking that we're talking to them in business terms now. We're no longer talking about the server has been up for 100 days. We're talking about the application has been up for the 100 days. And we're
Right.
very, very proud. We go into the office and say, here, see, Mr. Business Leader, the application has been up for 100 days. And the business leader is kind of like, yeah, isn't that what you're supposed to do?
Right.
Is the
Meets
application not
expectations.
supposed to be up for 100 days?
Mm-hmm. Right. So instead of, I mean, those metrics are important, right? They're important to us as IT people. They mean something, but what is it that we should be going to, the business manager and like, what is it that we should be showing them?
So this is again those things that as we start to people more, as we start to talk to this salesmen or women, and we start to go into the office of the finance groups, when we go to the manufacturing floor, we're hearing firsthand what matters to them, and we need to start
Mhm.
adopting that language and the metrics that we can translate to what matters to them from what we're seeing, i.e. IOPS. If we've gone from spinning Rust to some persistent memory solution that has reduced IOPS, that eventually translates into a business metric. That metric isn't that the system is faster. That, of course, we're IT, we're expected to make the system go faster. But
Right.
what does that actually mean for the business? What does go faster mean? This is where we use our peopling skills to find out and say, okay, what are some of the, as we look through the financial report from last week, and the organization has pushed down all of these KPIs and metrics for our reviews. What does this stuff really mean? What does it mean to be innovative? Wait, is innovation meaning that we have, that we just went from spinning Rust to SSDs and Optane class memory? No, that's not innovation. Innovation is we launched a new product that we're
Right.
now selling in the market, and we're able to sell a new product faster. It's peopling to help tie those metrics of installing faster, more capable systems to salespeople being able to instantly show a prospect detailed images over a 5G network that wasn't there yesterday. The innovation isn't the 5G network. The innovation is the app that allows the salesperson to close the deal faster. How did you contribute to that bottom line activity?
Right. And I think that this is something that especially monitoring engineers will be able to grok fairly easily, which is that as a monitoring engineer, when new monitoring engineers come in, one of the first questions they'll ask me when we're talking at trade shows or whatever is, what's the best practice of the things I have to monitor? Like, what are the things I have to monitor this thing? It depends. It depends on what's important. Well, how am I going to know that? Ask. Go to the people who care about those systems and say, I just handed you a magic wand. You can get any information out of this that you want. What is it that you want to know? They'll tell you the things to monitor. So that makes sense to experienced monitoring engineers. We're used to having that conversation. And after you have the monitoring statistics, how do you know something is bad? And once you know what that threshold or what bad looks like, well, what do you do then? Well, I take these actions, which I can then automate. That is a conversation that we as monitoring engineers are used to having. It's a skill that you can put to use in business also. How am I supposed to know which business metric matters? Is it cost or is it revenue? Am I supposed to know whether it's the number of customers that we're able to serve? Ask. Go to them and say, because otherwise you're going to say, look, I was able to reduce cost. Yeah, so what? That cost didn't actually matter to us. What do you mean it didn't matter? I actually was on a job where I reduced the license cost from $1 million to $50,000. I was actually able to cut all that. And after I spent 3 months doing it, the manager said, we don't care. All that software is provided to us through a grant. It actually doesn't cost us anything. So you didn't save us any money at all.
Matter of fact,
Because
we can't even use the grant anymore because that grant
right,
was for the software, and you might have destroyed a different metric. And this is a thing that we, as IT people, we're always driving towards efficiency, but we're typically driving towards efficiency that sometimes doesn't matter. It works in the other way too. I was working a SAP HANA migration project. SAP HANA is at the size organization we were doing this at. This is a uh, $30 million project. And the IT infrastructure part of it, they came and said, "Hey, Keith, can you save us $100,000, which is 10% of my budget, off $1 million project?" Well, it's a $30 million project, and you want to take 10% of my budget of $1 million? No. And it's being able to have that conversation and push back, because as IT people, works the other way around. We're kind of okay with being pushed around. Someone says, "Hey, we want to reduce your budget," and we typically say, "Yes, sir. May I have another budget reduction?" No, it's let's have a conversation about, why do you want to reduce my budget, and is it more effective to go after my $100,000 or after the guy that has a $5 million budget? Can he save us the $100,000?
right. And also, do you understand the impact that, sure, you can cut my budget. Here's what you're going to be losing. And that's not me being punitive. It's just the reality of what you're not going to be able to get. No, I like that. Okay, this has been an amazing conversation. We obviously have a lot more to discuss about it, but it's a good start for folks. This is the lightning round. Any final thoughts? Anything you want to make sure people don't forget before we wrap up?
So if this has all been too much for you, I know we didn't get into any big, really business jargon. The
Mm-hmm.
simple fact is, start having lunch with somebody that's not in IT.
Crazy.
Simplest place to start. Just go to a different group and say, you know what, I've seen you in this cafeteria for the past 5 years. We always nod. I'm just interested in what you do. Can we have lunch?
Mm-hmm.
Just start from there and just listen to what they do and have them give you one pain point about IT. You may not be able to solve it, but people like being listened to.
But you'll know about it. There's a local company, an insurance company here that is locally famous for the fact that they make their employees move every 6 months. and they don't put departments together. They don't put teams together. They'll take half or a third of the team and put them over here and over here. And that goes for everything from IT to accounting to facilities to whatever. So every 6 months, you are not only moving sometimes across campus or whatever to a whole different space, but you are now sitting among a whole different group of people. And why do they do that? Because you overhear cube conversations, because suddenly you recognize that these three people from legal have been fighting with some substandard software or really bad response time or whatever it is. And oh my God, I can fix that for you. I didn't even know the problem existed before. And whether that's something that the accounting team can solve for facilities or something IT can solve for catering or whatever it is, that's why they keep mixing it up. Not everybody works for a company that does that, but you can do that yourself, it sounds like.
Yeah, and we're in the phase of social distancing as this is being recorded. The same social things that you've been doing with your IT coworkers invite a non-IT coworker to do. This doesn't
Yeah.
have to be very complicated. You can just simply say, "Hey, you know what? I'm just interested." Hit somebody up that you know within the organization. I'm just interested in what you do. Can you explain your job to me?
Keith, thank you again for just sharing all of your knowledge and experience with us.
Leon, thanks for having me yet again.